Hello everyone, Loco here, and welcome to a best of 3 series of StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a very interesting match of Terran versus Zerg, where in game number 1 we find ourselves on the map El Sayani. Spawning right here in the bottom left-hand corner, playing with the red Zerg drones, we have Scarlett, and her opponent in the opposite corner with the blue Terran pieces. He goes by the name of Spirit. Now this is a really cool match that was played as actually the very first series at IEM Katowice. So IEM Katowice, it just wrapped up a couple of days ago. This was a $500,000 StarCraft 2 tournament. And over the next couple of weeks, I want to feature the very best games of this tournament on my YouTube channel. So if you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get notified as soon as future videos go live. Because let me tell you, there were some amazing games played at this event. Some that I've already seen and some that I haven't, because I was one of the commentators for the event. But during the first couple days, we didn't just have an A stream, right? We didn't just have the main stream, but we had a B stream as well as a C stream too, because 3 series of games were being played simultaneously. Now, this particular match right here, it's the very first cast that I did of the entire tournament. So the first best of 3 that was played on the main stream that I cast together with Pig. So because of that, I already know what ends up going down. But I don't think that really should make this video any less interesting, because it turns out Scarlett decides to go for a very interesting style of a Zerg. Now, we've got a command center first right here for Spirit. He is going to be sending an SCV across the map too, but this is right from the get-go a greedy beginning right here for the Terran player, a strategy that can certainly backfire if you do not everything perfectly, right? And this is one of those builds that you may not want to implement on the ladder, but we actually saw a ton of command center first in this matchup during the entire event. Terran players were cutting corners left, right, and center, and honestly, as a StarCraft fan, I love to see it. Anyways, let's talk about this matchup on the whole for just a moment, okay? As we do have the first Reaper coming up. Generally speaking, Zergs have been playing the same unit compositions for, I want to say 14 years now, ever since 2010. The go-to in this matchup has pretty much always been Zerglings and Banelings. These days, of course, we do see a little bit of Roach play early on as well, but generally speaking, Zerg players will always transition from Roaches and from whatever early game they have into Ling Bane. The advantages of Ling Bane are pretty obvious. These units are incredibly strong, you can make them early on, and they scale very well the longer that the game goes on. Obviously with the Evolution Chamber upgrades, but then also with Adrenal Glands, right? The Hive Tech over in the spawning pool. I mean, it's a banger of an upgrade, and the Zergling is really good from minute 1. So, the Reaper here does catch the tail right there of one of those Lings. Anyways, no response there from Spirit. A little bit of sloppiness. Maybe he also needed to warm up for just a second, and this is going to cost him a bit, because those SCVs are forced to run around. Yep. So Ling Bane, right? I think you all know, if you've seen a couple games of StarCraft 2 over the years, you probably are well aware of the fact that Zerglings and Banelings are the go-to unit composition in this matchup. Now, interestingly enough, Scarlett does not actually play Ling Bane in these games. Maybe she brings it out later on. I don't remember the exact specifics of, like, the final part of what will be in this video. I just remember very specifically that in this game, as well as in the next, that shouldn't really be much of a spoiler because this is a best of 3. She decides to go for a strategy that I was not yet familiar with. And this is one of the really cool parts about playing and, well, watching these premier tournaments. You generally speaking want to save your very best strategies until they count the most, right? So obviously if you're playing the smaller online cups, sure. Couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. That's really nice. That's really valuable, especially if you do them, you know, a few times a week. But obviously, if there's $150,000 for the first place prize on the line, you probably want to, save your very best strategies until a little bit later. And that's exactly what Scarlett ended up doing here. Alright, so far nothing all too weird, right? We've got the Queens, we've got the Zerglings, and we've got ourselves a triple command center opener right here for the Terran. It's going to be Hellions together with Banshees. This is something we have seen a million times as well. Spirit decides to play a very normal series here. Overall, second tech lab coming up, and we've got ourselves that Stimpack upgrade, right? So I really want to keep my eyes primarily here on the Zerg. It's a 4.5 minute lair, nothing all too weird. However, and this is where me and Pig we were casting this match, right? We were casting this series, and at some point we're like, okay, I think Scarlett's making a mistake. Something is a little bit off. why in the world is she not making a Baneling nest? Normally what you do, most of the Zerg openers, they will pivot with Baneling speed. So up until the point where you have Baneling speed, you play defensively, and then as soon as you have Baneling speed done, the roly-poly upgrade, that is when you can finally really get aggressive and maybe set like a little squad of Banelings over here and right-click them into that mineral line, and then they will roll on over in that direction, right? You've probably seen that quite a bit. At this point, there's no Baneling nest. What in the world is going on here? Why do we not have a Baneling nest? There's no Roach Warren, we have a lair, I guess it's Cloaked Banshees, so yeah, maybe having an Overseer or two can be very handy. Now the Evolution Chamber start up, together with a Hydralisk den. Now Hydras, Zerg players in SC2, professional Zerg players that is, they have a love-hate relationship with the Hydra. It is considered to be one of the worst units in the entire game, but of course it can morph itself into Lurkers, which are some of the very best units in this game. Scarlett, in this series, masses Hydralisks. So this is a Premier SC2 tournament. She's going up against Europe's one of the greatest one of the greatest Terran players from Europe. A very turtly Terran player at that too, so Spirit is a big fan of just playing that passive Terran style. And Scarlett decides to go mass Hydralisk. So 4.5 minute lair, 5.5 minute Evo chambers, and as soon as the lair is available, she throws down a Hydralisk den. Now this is a unit composition that I am fairly sure is suboptimal. I don't think it's nearly as good as Lingbane overall, but how much practice can top-level Terrans really have against this sort of unit comp, right? Because nobody out there is playing Mass Hydra. And I think that's why I decided to cover this particular series in this video. That's what makes this style so cool to me, because sure, it may not be the best, quote-unquote, best way to play. If you throw this build order with all of the other build orders in an Excel spreadsheet, this is probably not the build that has the most win rate, but it does work really well when your opponents have no clue about what exactly is going on. So, the ranged upgrade for the Hydras is done, the speed upgrade is coming up right now, and we've got ourselves an infestation pit. And Scarlett, basically from here on out, just makes a whole load of Hydralisks. Early on, defense with queens and zerglings. Now, obviously, she is cutting a few corners there, because, I mean, say it would have been a Hellbat push. Say it would have been, you know, any sort of, maybe not really something that Spirit likes to go for, but any sort of, like, two-base aggression. You can be in a lot of trouble, because even slow Banes are very good against it. But these are very quick Hydras in the grand scheme of things. These Hydras are going to be nearly fully upgraded. At this point, Spirit still does not know what he's playing against, and this is the first time that he sees a mass of Hydras coming down that ramp. And you see the awkwardness in that Terran control right there for just a moment. That is a Terran player who's like, what, hold up, right? That's what's going through his mind right there. Couple infestors going up as well right now. We've got ourselves the speed upgrade finishing. Zerglings are working away at the rocks. Lings are scouting as well on the left side of the map, but it turns out the 4th command center is building right over here on the right. Now, I thought Scarlett would be transitioning away from this into lurkers, right? Like hive tech with lurkers. That's what I thought the infestation pit was for. But no, it is mass Hydra with some of the leftover Zerglings. Now we're gonna add on some more. And then I guess fungal growth. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that kind of sick? Great plays right here by the Canadian Zerg. Throwing a curveball, playing a strategy that is very, very uncommon. 2 control groups as well, it looks like, of Lingbane. Or, sorry, not Lingbane, Ling Hydra. Now this is one of the run-bys of all time. Not very good. Drop in the main base also trying to be annoying here. Hive tech is coming at this point. +2/+2, researching. But ultimately, yeah, Hydras have another advantage over Lingbane, and that is that they can indeed, well, chill over here at the section of the map where the Medivacs would be passing by. I think one of the scariest things you can do to a strategy gamer in general, especially a real-time strategy gamer, right, is to force them to play against a strategy that they are unfamiliar with. So I notice this a lot in my own games. Not just StarCraft 2, but any real-time strategy game, or any game where you have to make decisions on the fly. as soon as you start thinking about what the optimal response is, that's usually when you start messing up a little bit in the macro, right? So obviously this is a style that Spirit is going to have to scratch his head about for a little bit. So he's going double factory here into mass siege tank production. I do think mass siege tank is an excellent choice here, but it is one of those moments where you have to be very quick on your feet and you have to make decisions that you may not have made before in a match. Okay, some nice fungals coming in. Look at this Hydra timing attack. What is this? What are we even looking at right now? Scarlett decides to back off. Now, don't get me wrong, by the way. I am not in love with this particular spot right here for the Terran. Props, of course, here to Spirit for... Oh, sorry, I don't love this spot right here for the Zerg, rather. Props right here to Spirit for making the decisions that he's been making here so far. Because, yeah, he's really... Considering the fact that he can't have played against this all too much, and considering he did a double take when he first saw the Mass Hydra style, and he had all of his army fungled, he still came up with a good response here. So an Ultralisk Cavern on the back of this. We have, yeah, a couple of Vipers now coming up together with Adrenal Glands. There's the Ultra upgrades, but obviously this is an awkward transition right now to make for these Ultralisks, because we've been upgrading Missile this entire time, right? So, going from Ling Hydra into Ultralisks. Sure, those Ultras are not really going to die. But you really do need something... Yeah, I guess maybe a third Evolution Chamber could be a cool addition. But that's really, really expensive. Command Center right now in a world of trouble. Okay, another nice little fungal there. Preventing a few of those Marines from escaping. There's, by the way, the Centrifugal Hooks upgrade coming up. And there is the +1 melee. So we go 2-2 with Missile and Carapace. Then into +1 melee with +3 armor. I don't know if this is a strategy that you necessarily want to play on the ladder. Because obviously the problem is if you're going up against somebody you're unfamiliar with, the odds of them going for any sort of all-in in the early game are certainly there, right? Maybe it's not the most common strategy, although it kind of depends on the league that you play in. It might be a more common strat in, say, like Diamond League or maybe below. I don't honestly know. I think most people actually in Diamond League play very normal strategies too, but there's certainly a lot more weirdness coming up as we do have some really nice abductions over here. Quite a few of these Terran units end up falling. But if you know that your opponent is likely to play a normal opener, like for example Spirit is doing here, so Spirit is a big fan of, for example, CC first or just any triple command center start. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential, as one of the queens apparently gets targeted here. I think there's a lot of potential in giving this strategy a try. Or maybe you're just looking to mix it up, right? Maybe you're just kind of tired of playing Ling Bane every game. I mean, ultimately all the roads do lead back there apparently. We do go back into Ling Bane with Ultra support right now. But this is a relatively easy strategy to play. I mean, other than the Spellcasters, I think you can probably, yeah, get the Infestors to work. I think Infestor Viper together at the same time is really tough. But overall, look at the creep spread right now as well on the minimap. Overall, this is certainly not the hardest unit composition to play. So I love this movement here by Spirit. So Spirit actually coming in with the EMP, or at least thinking about it. Spirit making sure that he could not get fungled from the low ground there, but here is just a Zerg swarm moving forward. Very tricky. But Spirit is still, yeah, in a pretty solid spot here, right? So what Terrans like to do is build up what we like to call the Iron Bank. So there's quite a few orbital commands already. We're currently up to 4. One is currently coming here too, and yeah, added on into the mix. So you want to have up to about 8 or so orbital commands, at which point you can drop mules for days. The only problem right here for Spirit is that this is a very mobile Zerg army, and he's putting most of his eggs in, well, defending that section of the map. More great fungal growths are coming up, but this is a bit of an awkward unit comp right now though, yeah. With this Mass Hydra style blocking those Ultralisks from getting to the front. So those Ultras, with their very derpy pathing, very messy to get them to the front of that army, and they're ultimately not going to be able to get there. 3 additional command centers coming up. The bank right here for Scarlett is impressive. But of course, you can't really draw too many conclusions from it because Terran is making late game investments. Banelings here, okay, not really achieving that much. Excellent hold right there for Spirit. And you can see that Scarlett's supply is plummeting. Now, I think this is the moment where the age of the Hydra is over. Yeah. Sorry, lads. Y'all have done a great job. We're glad you're part of this unit composition. Luckily for us, she decides to go for the exact same strategy in game number 2. So we are going to be able to witness this once again in just a moment, after this particular game ends. There's the 4 command centers, so we do get to see them once more. There's a Brute Lord transition coming up. So it's Ling Queen into Mass Hydra, into Hydra Infestor, into ultimately Ultra Ling Bane Infestor Viper. So all the roads do lead back, but it's that mid-game style that I think is very interesting. Now, I also had a little bit of a chat with Rainer about this particular strategy. And let's just say that he is not a fan of it at all. He mentioned that, I think he posted this actually in Twitch chat at the time. I'm trying to think. Anyways, he said something about why would you mass the worst Zerg unit in the game? It's like, yeah, good point, Rainer. Not a bad idea. Not yeah, or not, well, a bad thought process right there. Why would you be making the worst unit that Zerg has? I mean, I don't really know exactly if it is considered to be the worst unit. I think overall, probably the Swarm Host is a little bit weaker. Obviously, a very specialized unit. But I think it's cool to see that the Hydra has, at the very least, got a bit of potential, right? Like, even after all these years of SC2, you'd imagine that, like, the early game strategies and the mid-game transitions are well figured out. And for the most part, they are, but there's still potential for different strategies to be coming up. Anyways, personal cloaking finishing up for the Ghosts. Advanced ballistics coming up right now as well for the Liberators. So Spirit is trying to go into a siege tank. Yeah, a siege tank, a Viking, Ghost, Liberator unit style. It's very powerful. He has seen the Brute Lords at this point, and he needs to respect them. Problem is, against these Hydras and Ultras and Banelings, Spirit's been making a ton of Marauders, so we're up to 15 Marauders here, but Marauders are the worst against these Brutes. Base here in a world of trouble. Command Center attempted to be landed. Scarlett keeps on gobbling up as much of the map here and putting up as much creep as possible. Still though, her worker count is really not that amazing. Nice fungal growth there in the end, but it's mostly just gonna prevent a lot of those ghosts from using their snipe ability. An orbital command right there falls, and 31 SCVs with it. Thors are coming. +3 infantry armor, and the front door is wide open. This is a section of the map where Scarlett is incredibly aggressive, and I think it's very clever, because Spirit right now is moving towards the right side of the map, right? Putting a little bit of a flip right there on that SCV, but a little bit of a spin. These bases here on the right side of the map are pretty far from the natural expansion, so all of the production that Terran has is coming from the main base, right? And in the meantime, most of the Terran army is trying to set itself up on the right side of the map to protect those new outer bases, and that ultimately makes the natural expansion wide open. It's difficult for Spirit to split his units into multiple locations at this point. Yeah, this sensor tower, I was gonna say, we really do need a sensor tower in this location to see this Zerg army coming in. Scarlett right now moving on over towards the right side of the map. And this is something that you have to respond to reactively every single time. So as soon as those sensor towers are gone, Spirit is very much so in the dark. New sensor tower set up over there on the high ground, but now the one on the right side is gone. Fungal growth is going to prevent some of those Vikings from escaping. Okay. Very nice game here, though. Ultimately, how's this position for the Zerg? Well, the thing, of course, here is that she's got so many bases. She's been mining the entire left side of the map. She just doesn't have that many drones. I would have liked to see this particular style, I think, with a slightly heavier focus on workers. So at a certain point, she did go up to 90 workers. I think going back up to like 85 or so at this point would not be a terrible idea, because there's so many empty mineral fields, especially in the top left-hand section of the map. Bottom right-hand corner is being acquired right now, but Scarlett is certainly not going to have drones available for that. Like, there's taking hatcheries and then there's mining hatcheries, right? There's additional 21 SCVs end up going down here. Not bad at all. Fusion core restarts again. I guess advanced ballistics actually never finished up. Planetary fortress now also falls in the middle of the map. And at this point, Spirit is forced to defend wherever he can. Still a lot of Hydras. I thought the age of the Hydra was actually over, but it's not. She decided to go back. Yeah, she decided to go back to mass Hydra production. +3 melee coming up. Banelings, 30 Banelings, very aggressively positioned. But some great army movement right here from Scarlett is going to make it very difficult for Spirit to achieve much. Okay. Yep. So right now Spirit is predicting, since we've been going back and forth like 5 times already, Spirit is predicting that the next wave of Zerg would be coming in on the right side of the map, but it turns out Scarlett backed off and decided to go from the same angle another time. Nice snipes over here though, but the ghosts, yeah, they have to be guarded so carefully. Okay, good EMPs though. All of the infestors right now, with the exception of 2 in the back, are out of energy, but I think the amount of Zerg may just be a bit too much. Either way, look at the reinforcements. I forgot about that. 31 additional Hydras coming up. So they really have been the core in this game. Now, turns out they get torn apart though by these ghosts. Ay, that wasn't even a snipe. That was just an auto attack right there from those ghosts. Not bad for a spellcaster, eh? Those ghosts don't mess around. Spirit right now, though, in a world of trouble, and there it is. GG is called. It's Scarlett, who obtains the victory in game number 1. All right. Now, for game number 2, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. Let me know down below in the comment section. For game number 2, I figured it might be fun to look at this strategy entirely from Scarlett's point of view. So, this may become a little bit nauseating, because these pro gamers are very quick. And in general, this is, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of flashing of the screen like that, where they're reselecting and double checking all of their control groups and camera locations and all that. But anyways, maybe I can provide a little bit of information too as to what the Zerg players are looking for, because this is gonna be a bit of a different game. She decides to go for a very similar strategy. So I think for the most part, other than maybe the Evo chambers, I think the strategy is basically identical from the one that we saw in game number 1. So I think in game number 1, her Evo chambers were at like 5.5 minutes. I think in this one, they're a little bit quicker. Or maybe the lair was later. Either way, Spirit decides to do a different approach. So as soon as Spirit figures out what he's playing against, rather than sitting back and playing it passively, Spirit is the one who decides to go on the offense. Which I think is gonna give us a pretty good insight as well to what the Zerg player is actually doing. Alrighty, so that was a 16 supply hatchery on the low ground into an 18 supply gas geyser into a 17 spawning pool. The next drones are being rallied onto that gas. And generally speaking, Zerg players these days, they will leave those drones in gas until 100. That used to be the go-to back in the early days of SC2, and it's once again become the go-to these days. For quite a while, Zerg players were pulling the drones off of gas at about 60, so they would leave only 1 in at that point and go for the quick 3rd hatch. The advantage of that opener is that you can go for a hatchery before the Reaper shows up, and you can still get your link speed done by the time that Terran can have 4 of their Hellions on the other side of the map. The reason why the... Oh, she actually is pulling... Yeah, no, she is actually pulling 2 drones out of gas right here. Alright, cool. The reason why it's fallen out of popularity is because of those triple Reaper openers and the double Barracks Wall-offs in this matchup, where Terrans go for 3 to 5 Reapers or so early on. Scarlett apparently is gonna go for the quick 3rd hatch in this particular game, because, yeah, I guess it makes sense. Spirit doesn't really play that style all too frequently. Spirit very much so a conventional Terran. So upon seeing the timing right here, Scarlett now knows, okay, this is a greedy Terran opener. Don't really have to worry about any aggression, so I also don't need link speed nearly as quickly. Queens at this point are out. One is going to inject the main, other one is going to put down a tumor. She decided to cut a few drones at 31 supply to go for a queen in the natural expansion, and then there should be an overlord. There we go. 33 supply overlord here. So that's 31 queen, 33 supply overlord. Is this confusing yet, by the way? Are you looking at this yet and you're like, oh my god, Lowko, this sucks. This is not what I wanted to see. A little bit of variety. I mean, since I already know what ends up happening in this series, I figured maybe it is fun to take a bit of a different approach in this video. A little bit more for strategic talk, I suppose. Bit more nerdy. To be fair, you're watching other people play video games. Actually, we can take it one step further. You're watching somebody talking about other people playing video games. So this is already pretty nerdy, okay? Some of you may be painting your Warhammer figures or drawing anime or whatever, right? Like, that may be going on as well. This is about as, yeah, peak of the... It's probably the peak nerd lifestyle, yeah. Anyways, what Scarlett is doing at this point is powering out as many drones as possible whilst making sure that she's safe. So there's 10 Zerglings on the production tab at this point in time, and those links are aligned up together with the Zergling speed upgrade. So metabolic boost is done. Like I said, this lines up with the Terran's Hellions, so notice those Hellions on the production tab, they're done right now. That's exactly the point where link speed finishes. So Scarlett has got about, I think 14 links, maybe 12 links or so. Oh, she must have lost the first ones, okay. She's gonna try and catch those Hellions! They're slippery, not going to happen. Oh, Reaper goes down. Alright, Zerglings run back. Anyways, that is just to keep safe. That is just to try and keep that Terran player occupied, and ultimately she's going back to droning. Standard timing for Spore Crawlers is coming up within the next 20 seconds or so. So if she wants to go for Spore Crawlers, if she suspects that it is going to be... So there's that 4.5 minute lair again, just like in game number 1. But if she suspects that this is going to be Banshees, she will be adding on some spores here momentarily. Usually about 450 or so seems to line up. I don't really know exactly how it works with the command center first, but I'm sure that Scarlett is aware of the exact timings that she needs to be aiming for. Yeah, she's gonna delay it just a little bit. Extra gas is coming up right now. So those gases are taken when she's fully saturated as far as the minerals go. Then 5 minutes or so in the evolution chambers, rather than 5.5, what we saw in the previous game. Now spores are coming up at 5:10. Okay. Fourth hatchery. So I didn't count the gases in the previous game, but when she went mass Hydra, she may have just done that off of 5 gases as well. So there's 2 gases in the natural, or sorry, yeah, now she's taking okay, the second gas as well in the natural expansion. So ultimately we're just going 66 drones, which is enough for 3 base saturation, and then just mass Hydra production again. So lair is done. Hydralisk then should be coming. Prioritizing the drones, and I think right about right now, there we go, when the resources allow, Hydra then is indeed on the production tab. Spore Crawler here very critical. Queen's walking around. We can see the hotkeying, by the way, of her as well. So we have hotkey 4 for all of the hatcheries. There's a detector, and then maybe a couple other units as well on hotkey 5, and then another hotkey on hotkey 9. Now you may be wondering why in the world is hotkey 9 there, because that is just way far out. The reason why it's 9 is because she probably has it rebound to another hotkey. So if you go into the custom settings of SC2 and you go into the hotkeying, you can change the hotkey for the number 9 to any other hotkey. So it sounds a little bit funky, but maybe she has like a, I don't know, like a mouse button or something like that. There's a bunch of keys as well in SC2, like for example the tilde key, the key right next to the 1, to the left of it. That are not commonly used in the game itself, and obviously it's a very easy hotkey to reach. Not exactly sure what she's using for that, but that is why it shows up as 9. It's not like she's reaching all the way across the keyboard though, I'd be very surprised. Alright, so the mass Hydra production, it has begun once again. Now notice here that Scarlett is not busy scouting. That, generally speaking, is an indicator that you want to go for whatever strategy you want to go for, regardless of what your opponent is doing. And that is a very obvious distinction between, for example, Scarlett and Serral. So I'm sure this is a style as well that Serral has tried, because Serral is definitely a grinder. He plays tons and tons of games. But Serral will continuously be scouting. And that is something you will really only see from the tippity-top Zergs. Yes, there's a lot of assumptions you can make. Yes, you can look at this Terran opener and be like, yo, this looks like a normal game to me. But you never really know exactly what's going on, right? So she's scouting right now. She sees it. She's trying to go for a run-by over there. Like, maybe the scouts that Serral is doing, as we do have a nice successful run-by over there. Maybe the scouts that Serral is doing, maybe they're a little unnecessary sometimes. But he's double-checking and triple-checking all of the decisions made by the opponent. Now, that base is certainly never going to live. And notice this aggression right here, completely catching Scarlett off guard. This is not the same passive style that we saw from Spirit in game number 1, where he was the one taking a beating. Right? He did that move out with the siege tanks and that bio army at the start of the game when those Hydras first caught him off guard. But now he knew that he was going up against the mass Hydra style, and he's responded by playing this a little bit more aggressively. Scarlett decides to meet this army head on as the siege tanks are still unsieged. Hellbat's over at the 4th base as well, trying to create a distraction. You look away for a half second, and all of those Hydras, well, at least a lot of those Hydras ended up falling there. So a lot of Hydra blood as Scarlett returned to that ramp with that main engagement. New hatchery coming up, but slowly but surely here, Spirit is moving forward. Love the positioning here by Spirit. Love the adjustment. Expertly played. Notice the amount of siege tanks. Oh, beautiful shots right there by Spirit. And this is why tournaments don't play best of ones. This is not what you generally want to be doing if you want to determine who the better player is. Best of 3s, I guess, are mostly for a time concern, right? So if you want to do best of 5s right at the start, I mean, I'd be down for it, but the tournaments would last several weeks. I wouldn't mind it if I wouldn't have minded if I had to spend several weeks over in Poland. That would have been pretty fun. But anyways, yeah, best of 1, not really relevant for determining skill. I know that in the early days was quite common, but in SC2, well, it's a strategy game, right? A best of 1 just is not very appropriate, I don't think. Now, with the siege tanks unsieged, you can tell here that, yeah, suddenly that Zerg army is a whole lot stronger. She decides to stand and fight for a little bit, mostly because the 2-2 upgrades just finished up. But sadly for Scarlett here, Spirit's 2-2 upgrades also just finished up. Infestors were also later in this game. I don't know if that was a mistake or if in the previous game they were just early. But I'm not 100% convinced that on this map, going Mass Hydra was the right style, right? Especially when Scarlett decided to take that forward base, that forward 5th in the middle of the map. Spirit can just get the jump on that relatively easily. +1 melee coming up right now, by the way. So we do have an attempt to transition, but yeah, there's no hive tech. There is no potential here for Ultralisks. Maybe that's something she wants to go for here in the end. Hatchery attempted to be remade at the bottom. 3rd base is going to be planted down once again as well. Notice as well, and this is something that StarCraft players generally do. Notice as well the amount of screen scrolling that's going around right now. So she's constantly using either the middle mouse dragging or she's touching the edge of the screen to move around. Earlier on, you will see players generally use camera location control groups a lot more. So the movement is a lot more specific. Look how it, like, right now it looks a lot more panicky. Again, if you want to draw a parallel to, for example, Serral. I keep mentioning Serral mostly because he's the best Zerg player in the world. Even at this stage in the game, Serral will do very little scrolling. Like, he will do it, obviously, because you need to. But it's a lot more precise. It's a lot more accurate. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes people are like, oh yeah, higher APM equals better skill. Not necessarily, right? So Scarlett right here is playing at about 500 APM apparently, which is incredibly fast. But at the same time, you can see that this is like almost like a... I'm getting a little bit of a panicky vibe from this camera movement. Maybe I'm reading into it a little bit too much. And that's fair enough. You can only interpret so much, obviously, but it certainly does look a little bit different as it did earlier on. So every time there's a response to seeing the Terran player show up here, rather than scouting that the Terran player is gonna make a move and then responding to it. So Scarlett right now forced to pre-spread her units here to try and catch any of those Terran drops. At this point, Spirit is, well, happily macroing up. We don't really know exactly what he's been up to, but finally that army once again shows. Ghosts have been added into the mix. Liberators are coming up. And when Ghost starts sniping Hydralisks, you know that Terran is feeling pretty juicy. Slow moving with the siege tanks. You love to see it. And there's just no angle. Like, the choke points on this map, they just make it pretty much impossible for the Zerg to play this Hydralisk strategy. Yeah. I guess my main concern with playing Mass Hydra is that it's not really a timing attack focused army. It's very difficult to capitalize. Now this is nice. It's difficult to capitalize on Terrans overextending. Like say for example you're a Terran player and you're overextending against Ling Bane. You blink twice and that Ling Bane army is on the other side of the map, right? That Ling Bane army is ready to harass you at home. Not quite the case in this particular game. Not quite the case with Mass Hydra. Obviously, they can still march across, but they're not nearly as quick. Good hold right there, though. That attack, I think, from Spirit was mostly meant to be game-ending. Notice right now that the sensor tower on the minimap shows up. So that is the third sensor tower, and that is a massive indicator that Terran has got another base up, completely uncontested. So obviously the sensor tower indicates that, yeah, there is an expansion right there right now, and that, as a Zerg player, is never a good feeling, because that means that the Terran was not quite all in off of, say, for example, 4 command centers, but they have been happily building their economy up as well over the course of this game. So at this point, yeah, there's so much. Now, this is a massive engagement here by Scarlett. She gets a good fungal growth off as well. Concave has been set up. Scarlett is trying her best, but ultimately, those siege tanks are just tearing her apart. Alrighty. Back to the regular interface, back to me controlling the camera. We find ourselves in the final game of this best of 3 series, and that one will take place on the map Site Delta. Reaper into factory, second supply depot right now at the front as well. I decided to fast forward through the first couple minutes of the game, because nothing all too crazy happened here. It's double queen, of course, for the Zerg. Quick third hatchery. Link speed will be following this up momentarily. Scarlett apparently, oh, this is kind of cute, using those Zerglings to start working at the rocks in the seemingly middle of nowhere. But this is where the fourth hatchery will be coming up, and sometimes these rocks can be incredibly annoying. Siege tanks over there in those locations. Tough to break. Alright. So, game number 1, the Mass Hydra style worked out very nicely for Scarlett. Clearly catching Spirit off guard. Game number 2, same strategy from Scarlett with a couple of deviations, relatively minor ones. Spirit responded differently, and he played the map layout beautifully. What exactly do we do on Site Delta? This is a map that is a lot more wide open. Do we make any changes? Do we still go Mass Hydra? What exactly is the plan? Third command center, coming up here nice and early. This is a deviation here for Spirit. So Spirit, rather than going for a starport at this point, rather than adding on those Sky Terran units, he's going into double barracks on the back of this. Stimpec. And we will be able to pump out a ton of Marines here momentarily. It's clear that Scarlett is not going for any roach aggression or any timing attacks here. So do you really need the Banshees, right? Those Banshees got countered pretty hard by the Mass Hydra anyways. Even though I think in game number 1 and 2 they still got a decent amount of kills. You may as well just power up into Marines right away. Again, maybe not a strategy that you want to play on the ladder. Triple CC into triple barracks with Stimpec is a bit greedy. If you go for like a roach timing attack, it would hit right around 5 minutes or so of in-game time, and obviously there's no wall of over here, and in general it's just a bit risky. But if you know that your Zerg opponent is very likely to just chill and macro up themselves, it's not a terrible idea. 4.5 minute evolution chambers, no lair. So in game 1, I think the evos were 5.5 minutes. In game 2, they were at like 5 minutes. Now they're at 4.5 minutes. This should be just melee upgrades together with Carapace. This is the more classical style of Zerg that I think is very powerful as well. There we go. So this indeed is the strategy that we've seen many times. So when playing Ling Bane, there's a dozen different ways you can approach it. Broadly speaking though, there's 2 options. Either you go for Baneling speed as quickly as possible, or you go for these upgrades as is reasonable, and then obviously you delay your Baneling speed. So with the Baneling speed super quickly, you would delay your Evo Chamber upgrades. With the Evo Chamber upgrades really quickly, you would delay your Baneling speed. This is, technically speaking, the riskier version of the build. Because say Terran attacks you right now, and that's exactly what we have. You will not have Banelings, you will not have a lair, You will have upgrades, but they're not done. So you end up investing a lot of resources here. Look at this. Another hatchery coming up, spore crawlers coming up, extra bases, double expand. I mean, this is triple hatchery right now. Scarlett is investing thousands of resources into things that are not going to be relevant, although she does cancel the spore crawler over there. So, queens and links. That's all we really have. Big economy here, though, from Spirit, right from the start as well. Yeah. Already up to 60 SCVs, which is not bad at all. Scarlett did just power out a big round of drones. So at the very least, she's going to be able to deal quite a bit of damage there. But Zerglings going in for the offense. Lovely little counterattack. Queens in the meantime, full of energy, full of transfuse. They should be able to keep each other alive relatively easily. SCVs are falling on the other side of the map. Scarlett in the meantime, going into the Baneling speed upgrade. Will we see a Hydralisk then in this game? I actually don't recall. You don't actually have to go Hydras with this sort of style. You could just go into a very quick Hive, for example. Just rely on Lingbane instead. And considering she made a third hatchery, right? So she made an extra hatchery alongside these other two. She will have a ton of Lynx production. And I think going into a quick Hive is not a bad idea. So 2-2 starts up. 1-1 is done. Push over here at the bottom of the map continues. But honestly, at this point, Scarlett can lose this base. It's not even that important. 14 SCVs have fallen. Push over here, though. Yeah. Nice targeting right there by Spirit. Getting rid of the opponent's Banelings before they could even get remotely close to this Terran Bio Ball. Okay. Lovely, lovely fight right there by Spirit. The only problem is that he took too much damage at home. So ultimately, yeah, 19 SCVs were killed by Scarlett. Which is probably about 15 too many. Overextension here as well, it seems like, of our Terran player, as more and more Zerg units are showing up here. So, this is effectively just a 3 command center all in, right? We do not have a 4th command center in this game. So Scarlett, if she realizes exactly what she's playing against, she doesn't need a Hive. No, 2-2 upgrades and just mass Lingbane Queen should do the trick. So round being set up over here. Banelings coming in from the side. We're gonna have to see some proper splitties right here from Spirit, who is doing a good job here at first, but ends up losing a lot of his troops. That's expensive. Sometimes you almost get used of players like, for example, Clem and Björn and Maru, who are so good at spreading out their Marines very quickly. But you kind of forget how easily that can go south. Once again, big Link counterattack. Scarlett actually relatively low on the drone count. I wouldn't have minded seeing those drones over at that base a bit quicker, but just playing it safe, playing it sound. Banelings now, morphing themselves in over at the top right-hand corner of the map. Lynx just going after whatever they can hit at this point. And apparently, it's a supply depot. So this game has fallen flat on its face right here for Spirit. Problem is, no extra command center, loads of SCV losses, bad upgrades at this point in the game. So what exactly do you do? Well, oftentimes the best strategy is to just do more of the same and hope you get a little lucky. But obviously at this point you are in a really tricky position. Triple medevac over at the bottom of the map. Scarlett just about ready to go in for the killing blow. Triple medevac boosting towards the main base. 46 Zerglings just about to hatch. No Banelings at home though. Yeah, no Banelings at home. That is 18 Marines. You gotta respect them. And you know what? I love this targeting right here by Spirit. Goes straight after the spawning pool. Baneling Nest also ends up falling. Love that play right here by Spirit. Spirit needs to pull a rabbit out of a hat, but this turns him into a magician. Problem is though, Scarlett did morph a couple of Banelings in, quite a couple of them, right before the Baneling Nest fell, and that's ultimately gonna make this game a lot more manageable. Without any Banelings, 18 Marines can actually be very dangerous. Well, when you scan for the 4th hatch and you don't even know about the 5th hatch yet, That's when you know the game is also getting a little bit shaky. Spirit trying to make the best of a very bad situation. Ultimately, though, the spawning pool will finish again and new Zerglings are indeed coming up. Hive tech is done. Not a lot of gas. Instead, we're gonna go into a bailing nest. Fair enough. Liberator here, harassing that expansion. Okay. Spirit bought himself a lot of time. He's dangling from the edge. In a lot of trouble, but yeah, this is also really bad. I mean, look at these lings over here. Freaking Gandalf at the front, shouting that the others cannot pass. Yeah, but even killing these bases is just not that much, right? Although, I think if Spirit was in a slightly better position at this point in the game, he would have felt a lot more comfortable. No fungal growths over here. Link's on running on over towards the main base too. I think Scarlett, this is one of those games for her where she's afraid that it's gonna slip out of her fingers. Just be as careful as possible. Because we've all played those games where you're winning, and you mess up 17 times in a row, and that's game over. Liberator, harassing this base. Spore Crawler is gonna come up. More and more Liberators dealing so much damage, though. A Spirit is mustering up quite the army once again. He hasn't really added on any SCVs in a long time. So this is essentially do or die. Another big wave of Terran units, but it's gonna join up with this main force that has been harassing the Zerg for quite a while. Liberator here just trying to be a nuisance. If Scarlett can pull back against this army and she can push it away, I think she's gonna be great. Yeah, no, if she can push this away, it's basically game over, and she just does have way too many units. We have a couple fungals. All right, fungals here on the Metavex. GG is called, and indeed, it's the Canadian Zerg Scarlett who obtains the victory. 2-1 over Spirit. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please take the 1 second that it takes to hit the like button. It really does help. Thank you.